Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the Hangout on Air today. Today, we'll be talking about boosting your AdWords campaign with dynamic search ads. My name is Rachel Melgard, and I am the Global Search Product Lead for Dynamic Search Ads. So today we ask that if you want to chat with each other as we're going through the presentation, that you use the hashtag DSA Hangout. You can see it at the top right of this first slide. So you can chat with each other using that hashtag, and you can also chat with some other folks who are on the call who are going to be helping with Q&A at the end of our Hangout. So let's get started. So here are some agenda items that we're going to cover in today's Hangout. First, we're going to go through a dynamic search ads overview. Then we'll talk about how to get started with your campaign. Then we'll move on to reporting and optimization tips. And lastly, we'll go through some Q&A. Please be sure to type your questions into the G+ events page for this Hangout. That will really help us to keep track of all of your questions as we go through this presentation. We'll be answering all questions at the end of this Hangout, so don't worry if you don't get an immediate answer. We're paying attention. We will definitely get to you. So let's get started. First, we're going to talk through a basic product overview of dynamic search ads. We know that a lot of our advertisers struggle to keep up with the frequent changes on their websites. Whether you have a retail site that sells cosmetics, a classified site listing apartments, or a travel site with hotel rooms, we know how hard it can be to keep up with your changing inventory and all of the information on your website. We also know that maintaining full ad coverage on all relevant commercial searches is really challenging. Queries are getting longer, with 54% of queries now having 3 or more words. We are seeing many new and unique queries. About 20% of daily queries have not been seen in the past 6 months, if ever before. And there is low exact match keyword coverage. 70% of queries have no exact match keyword to cover them. Dynamic search ads was developed with these coverage challenges in mind. We launched dynamic search ads to help you capture more of the incremental commercial search opportunity that's relevant to your business. So to visualize this, imagine the gray circle in the middle represents your website's inventory and all of your promotional content. Now, imagine this green piece on the left represents all of your current active keywords and your ads and the customers who are searching with those search terms. For most businesses, this will only partially cover everything you could profitably promote on your website. And that's where dynamic search ads can really help out and boost your results. DSA can generate incremental sales and leads by showing your ads on more relevant commercial searches than your campaign is reaching today with your existing keywords and ads. What makes dynamic search ads really great is that they're dynamically linked to what's available on your website. So let's take a look at how DSA works to understand this a little bit better. Dynamic search ads are targeted ads that are dynamically generated right from your website. Let's go through the 3 steps that illustrate just how this works. Step 1. With dynamic search ads, you don't need to specify keywords. Instead, you specify the pages on your website that you want to promote, the pages you want to exclude, and your max CPC bid. You also create an ad template. The headline is dynamically customized to match each query and landing page as new searches happen. We'll talk more about this in a second. Step 2. Next, our system indexes the pages you specify, relying on data that's already been captured by the Google Natural Search Index. And the last step, step 3, when a relevant commercial query occurs, our system automatically selects the best landing page from your site and fills in the ad template headline with a combination of the user's specific query along with information from the landing page. This makes the ad text highly relevant to the search and the landing page, which creates a good experience for our users. The dynamic search ads will then enter the AdWords auction the same way that standard ads do. And they also look exactly the same as your standard text ads, so the user doesn't know that they've been dynamically created. So I just want to pause for a minute here, because this is probably a good place to comment on what happens when a query occurs when you're already covering keywords in other AdWords campaigns. So generally speaking, whenever you've got an eligible keyword-based ad, your keyword-based ad will enter the auction. The main exception would be when your DSA ad has a higher ad rank and a high enough quality score that you'd have a more efficient cost per click than you would get from your broad or phrase match keyword. This is more or less the same sort of thing that we do if you have a broad match and exact match keywords that could both be triggered by a particular search. Let's talk about some of the benefits of using dynamic search ads. The first is the ability to get incremental valuable traffic. We've seen in our beta test over the past year that clients using DSA get about 10% additional incremental volume with a positive ROI. Using DSA also saves time and money, which is never a bad thing. It takes about 15 minutes to set up a new campaign, so that's really quick. And the DSA system dynamically adjusts ad serving and targeting as you create new web pages, make changes to your existing web pages, or as your inventory changes. With a DSA, you also have transparency and control with full reporting and optimization levers so that you can adjust bids, budgets, targeting, and negatives as needed. Last but certainly not least, DSA is compatible with all of our ad extensions as well as Conversion Optimizer. Now that we have discussed some benefits to DSA, let's do a comparison with keyword performance. Over the past year, we've run DSA with a global set of beta testers. During this time, we found some really interesting performance comparisons between dynamic search ads and keyword ad performance. So let me just set up a little bit about what this chart is comparing. This is looking at dynamic search ad performance in comparison with the performance of non-branded keywords in the torso and tail. We're looking at this comparison in terms of both click-through rate, CTR, and cost per conversion. You'll see that DSA does well when compared to non-exact keywords. So if we look at the first line of this chart, this shows dynamic search ad performance versus broad match. In this comparison, DSA CTR is 12% higher and DSA cost per conversion is 25% lower. This makes a lot of sense because DSA is able to more specifically match a user query with a very tailored ad text and a dynamically chosen landing page, whereas broad match keywords are typically paired with a more generic ad text and more generic landing pages. Next, if we look at the comparison between DSA and phrase match, so the second line, the results are similar. DSA click-through rate is 8.2% higher, and the DSA cost per conversion is 30% lower. Again, this really speaks to the specificity of the DSA ad text and landing page. Lastly, if we look at the final line in this chart, the comparison with exact match is a bit different. DSA click-through rate is 15% lower, and DSA cost per conversion is 18% higher. If you take a step back, this absolutely makes sense, as exact match keywords tend to be more heavily managed and paired with much more specific and tailored ad text and landing pages. Let's take a look at one client example for how they've used the benefits of dynamic search ads to really boost their AdWords performance. This case study is highlighting the client, Apartment Home Living. They are a leading U.S. apartment finder service with an inventory of tens of thousands of local apartment listings, and they have thousands of site updates daily. As you can imagine, they faced real serious challenges with keyword creation and with creating relevant ads and keeping their campaigns current while doing optimization and reporting at a huge scale. They decided to test DSA to see if they could increase their profitable traffic and beat their target CPA goals. Here's what the online marketing specialist, Trey Hughley, had to say about his business and their experience using DSA. With a huge online inventory of apartment listings that's constantly changing and growing, our searches are constantly changing too. We started running AdWords campaigns almost 5 years ago, and I'd say we manage 15 million keywords across our various search campaigns at this point. AdWords has been a high-quality source of visitors for a long time, but we also knew there was more search opportunity out there for our business. With dynamic search ads, Google's developed something that's made it a whole lot easier to tap into that opportunity. It's worked that well for us right out of the box. So over a few months of running and optimizing dynamic search ads, this client was able to boost their conversions by 47%, with a 54% lower cost per acquisition. Really great performance metrics. This client is a good success story for dynamic search ads. Let's talk about what other types of clients are a good fit for this product. We have a few basic suggestions around the types of advertisers who should use or who should not use dynamic search ads. Clients who should use DSA are focused on performance and volume, have large online inventory or promotional content, change their inventory frequently, and those who use Google Conversion Tracking and Conversion Optimizer, as these tools make managing DSA really easy. Clients who should avoid using DSA are any advertiser who has brand sensitivity or needs tight control over their landing pages and queries. We also do not currently recommend dynamic search ads for advertisers in the pharmaceutical or adult content industries, or for advertisers who have flash-heavy websites or websites with little text to index. Now that we've done a quick overview of dynamic search ads, let's walk through the basic campaign setup. Getting your dynamic search ad campaign started is really easy, and it should take about 15 minutes once you're familiar with the campaign setup flow. The first step to get your dynamic search ad campaign set up is to create a new campaign in your AdWords account. Choose to create a new campaign for the search network only. In the second step, on the campaign settings page, under the type of campaign, choose the radio button for dynamic search ads. And then in the third step, further down the campaign settings page, under ad extensions, you want to choose to use your website content to target your ads. The next step you'll be prompted to take in the dynamic search ad campaign setup process is to create a dynamic search ad text. This is a new ad format, so you will see two major differences between this ad type and your standard keyword text ads. First is that the headline field is pre-populated with the text dynamically generated headline. This is because the headline for your ad text is dynamically created by the DSA system and is based on the user query and the language on the dynamically chosen landing page. The second difference is that there's no space for inputting a destination URL. This is because the default destination URL is a value track parameter, which simply allows the DSA system to insert the chosen landing page for each query into this area of the ad text. If you are a client who uses some third-party tracking, you'll want to refer to the AdWords Help Center for more information about how to change your destination URL to appropriately work for DSA. In the initial campaign setup for dynamic search ads, the system will automatically suggest 11 dynamic ad targets for you to use in your campaign. The initial setup suggestions will be all category targets based on themes from your website. But let's just walk through all of the DSA targeting options so that you're aware of each and what they mean in terms of targeting your website. The category targeting option is where the DSA system groups your index landing pages from your website by theme. The drop-down box to the left will show the top 10 categories for your site. The URL targeting option enables you to target pages on your site having a web address or URL that matches specific words or character strings. When you choose the URL from the drop-down menu, you will then have a blank field on the right-hand side so you can fill this area in. The page title targeting option lets you target pages on your site using the title from the landing page that matches specific words or character strings. Again, when you choose this option from the drop-down menu, the field to the right will be a blank box for you to fill in. And lastly, the page content targeting option allows you to use text from the web page to target specific landing pages. We really only recommend using this for blocking pages on your site as exclusions. So if you're a retail client, a good example would be using the text that indicates a sold-out product as a page content exclusion. So that covers the basic setup for dynamic search ads. Let's talk about some additional recommendations for your campaign. When you're launching your DSA campaign, there are 4 main topics to keep in mind: settings, targeting, bidding, and budgets. If you can get these set up well from the start, your campaign will be much more successful. We recommend that you target no more than 1 language per campaign in your campaign settings, that you target all web pages as a catch-all dynamic ad target, along with the top 10 categories the system will dynamically suggest, that you bid for each category as you would for a comparable category of keywords, and where possible, use Conversion Optimizer to set a CPA target. And lastly, when you set your dynamic search ad campaign budget, we recommend that you set this to be 5 to 10% of your account's total search spend, as we're really aiming to bring you an incremental 5 to 10% of additional query volume. Now that you have your dynamic search ad campaign well set up, there are 2 more areas you can refine in the targeting and exclusions. So, after the first week, we suggest that you add more dynamic ad targets to establish different bids for different product lines. We also recommend that you adjust these bids over time to make sure that you're meeting your volume and ROI goals. Then on the exclusion side, we recommend that you always add negative keywords, the same ones that you would use for your traditional keyword campaigns, to your dynamic search ad campaign. And lastly, we would also recommend that you add exclusions in the Auto Targets tab to block non-promotional parts of your website, such as the About Us or Jobs sections. Or as I mentioned earlier, you can use this area to block pages that contain information about sold out or unavailable products. These refinements are very easy to do, particularly with the reporting tools available for dynamic search ads. Our last segment today is on reporting and optimization tips. And these will really be the key to lasting dynamic search ads success. First, let's talk about website coverage. This is a brand new metric that will show you how much of your website you are targeting with each dynamic ad target. You can see this by going to the Auto Targets tab, clicking on Customize Columns, choosing the Performance metric, and adding the website coverage column. In this example, you can see that this advertiser has very narrow targeting. Dynamic search ads may not deliver much in incremental volume or value, as the auto targets are covering under 1% of the website's total landing pages. So this will really help you to determine if the categories or dynamic ad targets that you've added to your campaign are really working in terms of covering all of your landing pages. Also new on the Auto Targets tab is a dynamic search ad specific version of a familiar report, the Search Query Report. The things that make this version unique to DSA are that this report shows every query, every auto-generated ad text headline for that query, every dynamically chosen landing page, along with all of the data on clicks and cost and impressions that you're used to seeing. We recommend that you use this report on a weekly basis and that you look for areas of your website that are seeing various rising volume trends. And then you can add these as new targets with distinct bids. Also use this report to find irrelevant queries that might need to be added as keyword negatives and to add non-productive landing page sections as dynamic search ad exclusions. We recommend that you use this report on a weekly basis and that you also look at one other brand new report. This is the last thing that we'll cover today. This is a brand new report on the Auto Targets tab called the Category Report. This report will show you additional categories for your website that you can add as dynamic ad targets or exclusions. Again, we recommend that you use this report weekly or bi-weekly and that you look for new categories that you can add as dynamic ad targets with different max CPC bids, as this will reflect actual campaign performance, and that you use this report to create new ad groups around these new categories with more tailored ad text. So that's actually the end of our content for this Dynamic Search Ad Hangout on Air. We'll now take a few minutes to review the questions you've submitted. And if you have further questions, please do post them on the G+ event page, and we'll try to answer them during this segment. If we don't get to your question, don't worry. We'll be sure to follow up after this Hangout has ended. So I'm just going to take a look at the questions that you've submitted, and I'll read the question and then go through and answer. So the first question that we have is, can you please get back about the way DSA integrates into the auction? I heard something about a dynamic real-time quality score based on the history of an ad belonging to a specific keyword. So dynamic search ad creation happens real-time, and it's based on the user query and your website content that you want to run dynamic search ads on. But once the ad is created, it participates in the auction just like regular keyword ads, and it competes just like regular keyword ads. Dynamic search ads also starts with default quality scores, and it will improve over time for well-performing campaigns. So again, that's really similar to how this works in your keyword campaigns. The second question that we got, does dynamic search ad click-through rate have any effects on the rest of the AdWords account? It's noticeably lower on a brief test I did, although still over 2%. Well, one good thing to know is that the quality score of your dynamic search ads are tracked independently from your keyword-based campaigns. So that means that there's no impact on the CTR of your quality score from DSA on your keyword-based campaigns. In terms of your click-through rate being lower for dynamic search ads, you really need to compare your click-through rate for DSA to keywords that are in the long tail or in the torso. You can't compare it apples to apples because you probably have a lot of keywords in your campaign that are branded, and branded keywords are going to get a much higher click-through rate, at least traditionally speaking. So you want to make sure that you're taking into account the types of queries that DSA is matching to and comparing them to similar keywords in your campaign in terms of click-through rate. Okay, the next question that you got, that we received, can you help me understand how DSA is different than broad match? Is it like a super broad match? Okay, this is a great question. Dynamic search ads and broad match have some similarities. They're both here to help you reach customers who are searching on a broader set of searches than you could reach with phrase or exact match keywords, and both offer full transparency and control. But it's not really accurate to think of DSA as super broad match, because it's much more limited than broad match, because DSA ads are always going to be based on the content and items that you sell on your website. So with broad match, you're specifying the types of searches you want to appear on, and you're doing that independently of what's actually on your website. With broad match, you still need to manually build ads and specify landing pages, but with dynamic search ads, this happens automatically. We also have some nice self-tuning bid features that we talked about in the presentation. And only DSA is able to dynamically adjust as you add, remove, or change content on your website. And so that means you don't need to adjust your campaign as you're making these website changes. So those are some pretty key differences between DSA and broad match. Okay, the next question. Can you talk about how policy violations are avoided with dynamic search ads, like trademark problems? So all of the ads that DSA creates go through the exact same trademark and policy rules as the rest of your AdWords ads. So when you create the DSA ads, you don't have to worry about these violations. We're still doing all of the back-end checks to make sure that you're not violating any of the trademark policies or anything else with DSA. Okay, next question. Please expand on brand sensitivity. What is the risk in using DSA on a brand site? So, because the ad text for dynamic search ads is based on a user's query, it's possible that certain searches may result in an ad text that isn't tightly controlled by the advertiser. So for brands that require very strict control over ad creative, and that's kind of the most important thing to them, dynamic search ads typically is not the best fit. So really, we want to make sure that if your client really is sensitive to how their brand appears in ads, that they are doing fully controlled keyword text ads so that they have complete control over their messaging. Next question. How does DSA relate to SEO? So DSA and AdWords ads in general do not impact your search rankings or your SEO efforts. But having good search engine optimization will help DSA in two different ways. First, the most essential part of search engine optimization, or SEO, is having your web content well indexed. Second, it can help us to create better dynamic search ads, since part of the ad is based on the content of your landing pages. If your site's not being indexed well by our systems, we won't know what queries are a good match for your site, and you probably won't see much relevant traffic. If your pages are well structured, have good layouts, and have good titles, and you manage these consistently over your website, you'll have a much easier time managing dynamic search ad campaigns, and you'll have much better ads that are created by our system. Okay, next question. If I want to exclude the same content from multiple dynamic search ad campaigns, what's the best way to set that up? So this is supported, but it's not completely ready in the AdWords interface just yet. So you can set up something that looks like a negative keyword to our systems. So this is basically just an old format that we used for dynamic search ad exclusions that will still work for negatives on an as-needed basis. We would suggest that you contact AdWords support for the exact format you'll need to follow, and we can also respond in chat once we get off this Hangout, so you can see what this should look like. It's a little hard to explain it verbally. Next question. Are there any other case studies on successful uses of DSA? Yes, there absolutely are. So we just did a blog post maybe about 2 weeks ago? No, maybe about a month ago. We just did a blog post that had links to about 3 different external case studies for dynamic search ads. So we can put the link to the blog post into the chat once we get off the Hangout, so you can go and check them out. Okay, let's see. Next question. Should you split up DSA for mobile and desktop and run separate campaigns? So for dynamic search ads, we recommend following the best practices that you do with your keyword-based campaigns. So if you normally break those up and optimize mobile and desktop separately, we'd suggest doing the same for your dynamic search ad campaigns. But just keep in mind that mobile sites are crawled and indexed a bit differently than your desktop site, because the content on mobile-specific sites tends to be a bit different. So if you split them up, it may help if you keep an eye out on your coverage and make sure that you optimize accordingly. It might also just cause a little bit more complexity in your campaign management. Okay, next question. Will dynamic search ads work on all search sites? Google search partners included, or will it just be Google sites? Yes, dynamic search ads will work on all of search, so Google search partners and Google.com. Next question. As to sites that would benefit for DSA, would static sites that are mainly content and not necessarily products be a fit for dynamic search ads use? Yes, these sites can also use DSA and use them effectively. The ability of DSA to adapt to changing content is less valuable if you're this type of site, but there are other aspects but the other aspects of improving your ad coverage and doing this efficiently still hold true. Let's see, I'm just waiting to see if some more questions come in. So, next question. Gaining data means you have the ability to optimize, for example, the bid. I would like to optimize my ad for different search queries. How can I match an ad to a specific query? So for dynamic search ads, you can match up what queries were shown by looking at the search terms report in the Auto Targets tab. You don't really want to be optimizing on a per query basis for dynamic search ads. You really want to think about your site more holistically and try and start thinking in terms of categories and themes for your website. Because the idea here is that dynamic search ads is an easier and faster way to get increased coverage. And so you don't necessarily want to have the same laser focus on keywords or queries that you do in your standard campaigns. You want to use the search terms report more as a tool to see trends or to pick out anything that you might need to add as a negative, or maybe something that you want to add to your keyword campaigns. So I think that those are all of the questions that we've gotten so far. Let me just see if there's anything else that came in. If you have any other questions, please do put them into the G+ Hangout, the event, and we can make sure to answer them for you. We'll also be sending out follow-up, so we can make sure that we can get back to you on all of your questions. If there's anything else that you want to ask, please do so now, and we'll make sure that in the last few minutes we can get to your question. Okay, another question just came in. DSA ads match the keywords and content on your website. Isn't this SEO? So now we pay per click for organic results? What's the difference? Okay, this is a good one. Dynamic search ads is not at all the same as SEO. This is an ad product. So our system for ranking and displaying results on the search engine results page remain fully independent of dynamic search ads. Dynamic search ads appear as ads in the ads section on Google. And organic results continue to do the same. So we're simply using some of the indexing and matching technologies from the organic side to help you more effectively promote your business via ads. So this is totally independent of organic. Organic will still appear exactly as it does today. This is just another way to help you to better target your users in the ads area on Google. If we don't have any more questions, I think that will be the end of our Hangout on Air for dynamic search ads. Please feel free. Oh, here's another one. Sorry, guys. The next question. Okay, but how can I create a more specified ad for a theme? That's a great question. So in dynamic search ads, you can create distinct ad texts for any ad group the same way that you would for a keyword campaign. So basically, you would enter in your more specific dynamic ad auto target, and then you would put it in a new ad group. And in the new ad group, you would create an ad template where the line 2 and line 3 of the ad text can be made more specific to that particular category or URL target. And these ads will continue to be dynamically tailored to both the query and the landing page. So it's absolutely the same basic principles as you would use for your keyword campaign. Just break out a new ad group, put in the new ad text, and have the categories broken out. So same idea, just the ad text will be a little more dynamic. Any other questions before we end our Hangout? Well, thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate your participation in this Dynamic Search Ads Hangout on Air. We'll be posting this to our YouTube channel, so if you want to go back and review the slides and listen again, it will be up there in the next couple of days. Thank you so much for coming, and have a great weekend.